And welcome to our first breakaway session. I hope I'm audible. Good morning to you all once again. My name is Elwin Chioka, and I will be moderating this breakaway session on financing entrepreneurship on behalf of the US Exchange Alumni Summit. So it is my privilege and a singular honor to be moderating. And we've got 1.5 hours, so if I could ask somebody to be a timekeeper, and we have our sessions. Again, we will take the format that we started off with. We'll have a discussion, looking at the topics, seeing the challenges that we as alumni and as entrepreneurs are facing. And we'll then have questions and answers from the panel and from the panelists as well, and from the floor, and seeing how best we can address the challenges that we are facing, both as entrepreneurs as well as the alumni members of this august session. So we will be looking at strengthening the US engagement in Southern Africa. We'll be looking at how we can tap into private-public partnerships, innovation, investment, and also how the US strategic engagement in entrepreneurship and fostering Africa's economic growth. And we'll also be looking at the financing challenges that we are facing, and possible solutions with insights, and probably have sessions as well on real case scenarios, live examples on how entrepreneurs are getting over these challenges. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the panelists for this session as they come up. First and foremost, we have Basil Mabasa. If you could come up, Basil, from South Africa. Yes, thank you. Basil is a South African-born entrepreneur who has a passion for community development. Throughout his life, he has been instrumental in bringing positive change. He runs a company called, I wanted to say Xisasi, but I hear it's Xisasi, Xisasi Africa Holdings. The company has interests in logistics, construction, information technology, media and marketing. He also owns several companies, including Xisasi Bulk Carriers, Xisasi Civils, Xisasi Africa Rentals, and he also runs Xisasi Cancer Foundation, a foundation he started in honor of his late mother, who succumbed to breast cancer. May her soul rest in peace. Basil is a company turnaround expert and works in business rescue teams, and is in the process of registering as a business rescue practitioner. His work includes fixing company balance sheets, capital raising, operational turnaround, and returning companies to profitability. He is also the president of the Collins Kabane Chamber of Business. In 2018, during Mandela Month and celebrating 100 years of Nelson Mandela, he was chosen as one of the 100 Mandelas of the future by News 24 and Naspers. Basil has recently launched his personal foundation, the Basil Mabasa Foundation, which will support education development in rural areas. It is through this foundation that he is donating 5,000 pairs of school shoes a year. That is awesome. That is awesome. A round of applause to Basil. Thank you for the work that you do. Our next panelist, Tadala Peggy Chikwenzule from Malawi. Tadala, I hear you want to be adopted as the Malawi alumni. Please come to Zimbabwe. As we have said, we have more water here than Zambia, who was actually... So if you actually do AI search, if you actually go on Gemini, the water is 100 times better in Zimbabwe than in Zambia. So we welcome you, my sister. As she introduced herself earlier on, she's a Malawi lawyerpreneur, a 2022 fellow of the Mandela Washington Fellowship with certification in leadership business from Clark Atlanta University. She is a founder of the Estat Events and Tipeze Flea Market, which has over the years positively impacted the sales of 5,000 SMEs. In 2024, she founded Tipeze Innovation Hub and Kidpreneurs aimed at empowering future entrepreneurs aged 4 to 12. She introduced the Tipeze CEO coaching program in 2023, through which young leaders and entrepreneurs are coached and mentored by top-tier CEOs. She is visionary, innovative, and has excellent resource mobilization skills, which she utilizes to propel the impact of Tipeze brand, including receiving a grant from Copyright Fund, partnering initiatives with Old Mutual, Coca-Cola, T&M, Standard Bank, National Bank, Umodzi Park, Sunbird, quite a long list, and a whole lot of other companies. And she's also assisting fundraising, crowdfinancing for survivors of floods in Malawi. Welcome, Tadala. A big round of applause to him. Our next panelist is Thabo Joy Masie. Thabo, welcome. A round of applause for Thabo. She is an enterprise developer, business consultant, and mentor specializing in human-centered design, SME growth, and innovation-driven entrepreneurship. With over 8 years of experience in business development, financial auditing, strategic mentorships, she helps startups and SMEs build scalable and sustainable businesses. She has served as a mentor for the Standard Chartered Women in Tech Incubator Program, with Bongo Hive, a business mentor for the Graça Machel Trust Women Creating Wealth Program, and the 2025 Local Engagement Coordinator for Tech Girls Zambia. She works closely with Legacy International and the U.S. State Department. Currently, she's a national business consultant under UNDP, implementing the Supplier Development Program, with Zambia being the second African country to launch this initiative. A Mandela Washington Fellow, Thabo is passionate about integrating emerging technologies into business models to drive economic empowerment, access to finance, and enterprise acceleration across Africa. So welcome, Thabo. And our final panelist, all the way from Zimbabwe, Patrick Masego. Yes, all the way from Zimbabwe. Patrick, you can join us. Patrick is a problem-solving thinker with 16 years track record in innovation, entrepreneurship, development, stakeholder management, banking, and training. He has achieved transformational growth relevant to industry for both entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs through combined ability in business strategy development and personal development. Currently working as the executive head innovation at ZB Financial Holdings, with previous roles in business and entrepreneurship development, scouting and partnerships, financial inclusion, and equities trading. He's also a U.S. Exchange alumni for the International Visitors Program in 2023, focusing on entrepreneurship and small business development. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our esteemed panel, and we will be having a discussion around this. And again, my name is Elwin Chioka. I'll be moderating this session. I work for NMB Bank. I'm the head of consumer banking, or head of retail. We also focus on SMEs, financing, and we've got other value-added services. So I will be moderating your session today. And it's interesting that this group, I'm sure we are the largest breakaway group. If I can count the number of chairs in here, I'm sure the other team members are looking for members. So thank you very much for joining us. As the book of Ecclesiastes says, a feast brings laughter, a bit of wine brings merry, and the Bible says, but money answereth all things. So I am sure all of us are here to think and talk about money issues. So thank you very much to our esteemed panelists, please feel free to answer any questions that we can start off with. But like I mentioned, we are going to be looking at challenges, barriers faced by SMEs, inclusive financial models, investor readiness, as well as how we can strengthen our SMEs. So maybe as an icebreaker, to Thabo, Tadala, and Basil, you guys are the entrepreneurs on this panel. What has been your biggest challenge in accessing capital, and how did you overcome it? Because I'm sure everyone here, I also picked up from the earlier discussion, the issue of resources is a challenge. So as we do this discussion, and then I'll ask Patrick maybe to give the perspective of how he is assisting accessing capital, but how have you found this challenge?
Okay, thanks. I think firstly, just a big, appreciation for having been invited to be a panelist in this prestigious breakaway, where we talk about financing for entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. I think for me, when I started my business, obviously there's always that appetite to want to go to the banks and raise, money for your business. But the problem that you have is you have a nice concept, but because it's not a concept that is proven, it's not bankable, and banks are not going to be interested in looking into startup. There's not much appetite in terms of wanting to finance startups because of high risk of failure. I mean, when you look at startups, research shows that of the 30 startups that can start this year, you find that by next year you're only remaining with 6, and out of the 6, 3 are the ones that are viable. So banks don't take kindly to funding startups that there's not been a proven history of bankability. So what I did was, when I went into the logistics business, I wanted to first prove, my business model. I've always had an interest in logistics. I've always had an interest in tracking. So what I did, instead of, because I did try to apply, although I was running other business, I was in construction, but the one that I had bigger interest on was on logistics. So what I did was I tried to apply for funding from the banks. I got declined, and I was like, let me just redo this whole business model. So instead of going for an outright purchase of trucks, I started to rent, get a company that rents out trucks, so that I can get to learn the business before I can even fully commit into credit of those assets. And then it took me plus or minus 8 months to learn the logistics business, how to do cross-border chrome transportation, cross-border magnetite transportation, and all those things. Because the first job that I did was moving magnetite from Palabra to Matola Harbor in Mozambique. So I learned a lot while, with not much debt commitment, except the fact that I had sort of rented the trucks. And in month 9, I was able to go and buy my first truck cash, And also in logistics, when you're starting, one of the things that I've learned quicker is don't go for high value, big assets, go and buy like a nice second-hand truck. That's in that way you sort of like reduce your startup cost. So instead of going to get an asset for 3.6 million, you can easily go and get an asset for 1.5 million that can still do the job that the one for 3.6 million can do. So I think it's about you at an early age being able to reconfigure a business model and work with what you have in the absence of capital to start your business.
Thank you.
Tada.
I'll build on what Thabo has said. So in Malawi 2019, there was a FinScope study that determined that out of 100 SMEs that start, 60% would have closed within 5 years because of different challenges.
Yeah.
And This is despite the fact that in Malawi, 40% of the SMEs are the ones contributing to the gross domestic product, about $15.8 billion per year. And it was found that one of the reasons that SMEs were failing were access to finance, as I said, lack of capacity. They don't have much knowledge on how to do business. They don't have the resources. They don't have the training, ICT, marketing, and many other things.
Yeah.
So this is the reality that Tipeza Flea Market is dealing with. I should state that Tipeza Flea Market was started as a hobby. It was meant to be a one-day event. We had Easter events that plans functions. And then we thought, well, let's just do a one-day event. It's called Tipeza Flea Market, will be done. When we did that event, a lot of entrepreneurs came through. They sold a lot of products and services. They were like, let's do it again. And to the extent that we're now 8 years old, and we have reached out to over 5,000 SMEs. How have we done that? It hasn't been easy. One way has been that the storeholders come together and they pay a fee. So we have to hire a venue, tents and tables. We'll ask them to contribute something. That way, it's essentially a model that we still regard as crowd financing, because everyone is bringing their little money and allowing us to actually fund the event. On the other hand, as you said, the banks don't understand what this market is all about. So we had to find other innovative ways. Therefore, we would leverage on partnerships and sponsorships. For instance, we would go to a venue like a mall and ask them for the space. That way they're contributing. We could ask Old Mutual to actually give us some items which we can do a raffle draw, raise capital. Therefore, we fund the event. We've had sponsorship from Standard Bank, TNM, and other organizations. At the end of the day, they give us money, and we give them a platform, which is a visibility platform. Currently, we have over 600 SMEs, and these are mostly run by youth who are unemployed in Malawi, and single household mothers. So at the end of the day, you required, said it was a hobby. We wanted to end this at the first time, but 8 years on, this is the livelihood of people. We have had SMEs from our market opening up a mortar and brick shop. We've had them employ people. At the end of the day, it's quite a big initiative, to the extent that right now, there are times we don't go to people come to us. So, for instance, we now have a shopping mall called Grand Park. They approached us and said, we believe you have a great skill. Can you then come to our park, set up your market? We believe that we will actually get marketing and visibility, because there's a ripple effect, by the way. If 50 SMEs come to our market, they put on their platform that they'll be selling at our market at Grand Park. You are advertising Grand Park. The 50 SMEs, if they have 1,000 people they are working with, it means they have advertised to about 50,000 people at once. Therefore, that's the benefit we're doing. The other way has been that we have had to be creative. You mentioned that we received a grant from the Copyright Society in Malawi. They have a copyright fund. You would say a market is not a usual space where the Copyright Association would actually fund. Probably they should be funding musicians and the like. But we did a proposition to them. We told them we would have a market with a theme called Arts and Crafts. When they looked at our theme and our proposition, they accepted and they funded us. So those are the other ways we've had to adopt to actually fund our organization, the SMEs, and everyone, to the extent that a lot of people testify that they're able to fund fees for their children, food. They're not working, they have a degree in their pocket, they're not being employed, but they're able to live sustainably and provide for their families and everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Tadala. Thabo, your perspective to accessing capital?
They've actually touched on most of the areas, but when you meet every SME, they think what they need is capital. So I'm going to speak from a perspective of a business mentor.
Okay.
What you don't need is capital half of the time. And what we have noticed as business mentors is there's a disconnect between the banks, what the banks require the SME to have, and what the SME actually thinks the bank is looking for. So a couple of things such as your financial records, are they in proper logic? When you present them to the bank, can you reflect the growth of your business? The other aspect is market validation. If you're building a business out of passion, and yet it's not scalable. Also, it's not solving a problem. Half of the investors are then looking to say, if we give you this money, what will it do for you and how will we get back our money? And to be honest, you have to separate passion and a viable business idea. The other aspect is governance. Is your business structured? If we gave you the money, are you the accountant, the HR person, the disciplinary committee? Are you everything? Because then, how are you separating these different roles? And you have a well-structured proposal of what you plan to do as a business owner, but as somebody who's giving you the money, how are you going to execute all these different factors as one person in that business? The other aspect is growth, scalability of a business. Is your business able to grow? Half of the presentations or applications that you review for SMEs, really they are not realistic, especially when you look at your economy. Can your economy support what you're trying to do? In Zambia, we're very privileged now. We have the Ministry of SMEs, which came under the new government. And I had the honor of working and creating the SME policy. Initially, what we noticed was we had to customize our policy to the level of our SMEs. So something that you also notice about lending institutions is they've defined SMEs not to the actual level of SMEs.
Okay.
So you find an SME is asking for a certain amount of money and the bank will say this is too little. But you find that the SME has never made a capital of $100,000. So then what they are asking for is in their capacity. So how did we solve these problems? So we partnered with a bank called Zambia National Commercial Bank, and on a monthly basis, it was supposed to be a bi-monthly activity, though we only held it once, but we did something called business clinics, where we called the various service providers. In Zambia, we have the Zambia Revenue Authority. What are they looking for from the SME? And then we also have PACRA, where you register your business. What are they looking for you to actually register your business? And then we have all these lending institutions, Standard Chartered, Stanbic. What do they want the SME to have? And it was a simple setup. An SME this side, a bank this side, and they're having one-on-one conversations. And the final feedback from that was people didn't understand what lending institutions needed, and neither did the banks know how amazing our SMEs were actually doing. And certain ideas may not be explained well on paper as a pitch, but when you go out there, be it in the Eastern Province, we have amazing SMEs in agriculture who are doing great things. But to put all that into paper is a huge disconnect. So that's what we are doing, and that's what I can say on it.
No, great, great. No, thanks, Thabo. That's a very good example of matching the entrepreneur as well as the bank. Patrick, over to you. You're sitting in the hot seat today. You're the only... Okay, I'm a banker, but I'm not... You can't ask me. But I think Basil and Tadala have mentioned that banks don't fund startups. So maybe two questions to you. Why is it that? Yes, maybe Thabo has mentioned the issues of poor record keeping and so on, but what is your... Sorry, is that better? Oh, my apologies. All right. Banks don't fund startups. I think it has been very clear, and you sitting on the other side, how do you see this? Thabo is mentioning the matching between the lender and the entrepreneur. And maybe just give us a perspective from the Zimbabwean perspective as to what challenges are being found and how Zimbabweans are overcoming this.
Okay, thank you for that, and good morning, everyone. You're right. This is the hot seat, especially if people are coming and expecting answers from us with regards to what the banks are doing to fund startups. So I'll answer that in a very short way, but very cautiously as well, because like you said, this is the hot seat. We are doing nothing. And I did say I'm going to say that with caution, because whatever answer I give as to what banks are doing to fund startups is not the answer that the startups want to hear. Primarily because when you come to the bank, what you want is funding, and funding we can't give to a startup company for obvious reasons. Some were highlighted. We're going to require 3-year financials. We're going to require a 3-month bank statement. We're going to require collateral. And these are all things that startups don't have. So what we are doing is probably what you don't want us to do, that you probably already know. So all the interventions that most banks, especially here in Zimbabwe, are doing is that we go out and we train financial literacy. We go out and we collaborate with startup companies where we allow, I know one of the speakers mentioned that, you ask for sponsorship, and the banks or the organizations do sponsor events, and there's some funding that goes towards that. But from our end now as a bank, the question is, do we really want to be sponsoring these events in the first place? Because they've got nothing to do with our objectives as a bank, especially if you come and you're in a totally different industry that we are not looking at funding or investing in that particular year. So then the sponsorship then just becomes in vain for us. So what I would say is to then say, to align between a startup company or an entrepreneur with the financial institution that can provide funding. It's largely on the part of those that are actually looking for the funding to then say, you need to go out and find out what the bank strategy is like for that particular year or for the next 5 years, to say, what are they into this year and how can I then help them achieve what they want to achieve? Because if you come to me as a banker and you tell me that there's a program that you're running and you need sponsorship for it, I'm going to look internally and say, how does this align with what we want to achieve? If it doesn't help us meet our goals, then we're not funding that venture, whatever it is, altogether. But if you understand what maybe our marketing function wants to achieve in terms of their marketing initiatives, if you understand what our CSR function wants to achieve, if you understand what maybe whatever unit there is within the bank wants to achieve, and then you can present that as a case to say, I will help you maybe open so many accounts at this event, I will help you achieve this target because of this event, it then becomes easier for us to have a conversation to then see how we can fund your particular initiative. But when it now comes to funding the company itself, it's very difficult as a bank because banks are regulated and we are using depositors' funds to actually lend to business concerns that are actually viable and continue to be a going concern. So for a startup company, those are all the challenges we are going to face. It's going to be very difficult to convince a bank, at least. I'm not speaking about microfinance companies, I'm speaking about banks. Venture capital is not included in what I'm saying, but if it's a bank that you're trying to approach for funding, you're going to have to get a lot of traction in the market and have all your papers in order before the funding can come through.
No, thanks, Patrick. So I think moving on to the issue of undeserved or underserved communities. According to the World Bank, in 2023, 70% of African SMEs lack access to finance. Women and youth entrepreneurs received only 3% of total SME funding. And this was due to high collateral requirements, which excluded 85% of informal businesses from banks. And like you mentioned, financial literacy gaps, they hinder loan approvals and investor confidence. So my question now to the esteemed panel is, how can we make financing more accessible to entrepreneurs in underserved communities? Yes, we've got requirements from banks, we've got all these things, but how can we make them more accessible, and how does the alumni support these ventures? Yep. Anyone can take it? Yes, Tabo?
I admire his honesty with regards to banks don't fund SMEs. One thing we need to remember is a bank is a business, yeah? And like any other business, your aim is to make a profit. And so it doesn't mean if the banks can't fund you, then your business is not viable. But entrepreneurship is about innovation. So it's about you being creative and finding alternative ways in which you can raise capital for your business. I'll give practical examples about what's happening in Zambia, and I would encourage you to actually Google some of the companies that I'm going to mention. So now we're moving towards microfinancing and blended financing. So we have companies such as Lupia, and Lupia is a proud company of the US Embassy because they went through the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs training. It started as an idea. She noticed how, as a young person, as a young female entrepreneur is having trouble looking for financing for her business. Then she said, then there is actually a challenge, and that's where innovation comes in, because then it means SMEs can't find money. So then she created a microfinance company to fund SMEs, which later expanded into different markets, because come on, it's not just SMEs that need money. Everybody needs money. So why am I dwelling on microfinancing? Microfinancing has a relationship with an entrepreneur that banks don't have. They are also entrepreneurs trying to survive. So what you would take as collateral will be acceptable to a microfinancing institution as opposed to the banks who may have high demands. So I highly encourage SMEs to focus on microfinancing.
Okay.
And then we also have blended financing. We have grants from the US Embassy. We have grants from different organizations. Just an example I would give is the Standard Chartered Women in Tech partnered with one of the best innovation hubs in Zambia, which is Bongo Hive, and they came up with a program called Standard Chartered Women in Tech. And this program was focused on not only making sure SMEs have bankable businesses, but also incorporating technology. You understand now that we're using less of going to a shop to buy things. Now everything is online, but not every SME is appreciating that. So we've got to leverage on different types of ways in which we can raise money away from that. Secondly, the other thing that we'll notice it's very hard to really sort of support an SME's credit score. But now we have things like M-Pesa in Kenya, mobile banking, which has now become the main thing. You're on a taxi, it's mobile banking. So those records that you have for mobile banking payments, they can actually suffice for a micro-lending institution or a microfinance, because then you can show how much money is coming in. Because a lot of our SMEs, very few people pay through banks, you pay through mobile money. So that's also something as an SME that you can strengthen and prove to a lending institution to say, my business is actually busy and making money on a daily basis. The other aspect that I would want to actually focus on is also peer funding. You've talked about youths. What's happening to youths? How are they unable to raise businesses? Africa is the youngest continent. And to be honest, all these borders don't matter. As much as we have challenges, we also have the solutions for our SMEs. So find out how you can create resources. Somebody talked about alumni, creating membership and all those things. Right now at the US Embassy, I do train entrepreneurs on how to raise money for their businesses by understanding what the institutions are looking for. So see how you can use your network to actually grow that, and by doing so, you'll be able to find out who is actually ready to fund your business. Thank you.
Thanks, Thabo. Basil, maybe from a South African perspective.
Okay. I think what we, in South Africa, for example, because obviously you've got the banks that would say we need XYZ, and then you've got a very high youth population that is unemployed. So what happened is 15 years ago, they started what they called the National Youth Development Agency, which is more like a micro financing agency, but the type of grants that they give you, so if you've got a business, say it's a small restaurant, or they don't give you money as in cash, they give you vouchers to go and do training in terms of how to do proper record keeping. Okay. So I think the starting point is we need to skill our entrepreneurs in terms of how to run a proper business, and how to develop proper concepts. I always say this tough line when I talk to entrepreneurs. I said, yes, people come to me. I sit in a lot of entrepreneurship pitches, and people come and tell their concepts. And we always have this thing that, there's a big gap in the market, right? But the question that I ask people, yes, we agree that there's a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? Because that's very critical. So people think there's this big gap. She mentioned the issue of M-Pesa, for example.
Yeah.
When M-Pesa was launched in South Africa, I was very critical of it. I said, yes, there's a gap for mobile money transfers in South Africa, but you've got a huge population of people. That one is it's unbanked. Number two, they trust to see their money physically, So if they don't see their money physically, then there's trust issues there.
Yeah.
So, and number three, people do not have access to cell phones. So you're going to pump in a lot of money to citizens who are not going to be able to access whatever that you're trying to do. So they put in a lot of money, billions into this concept in South Africa, Vodacom. It failed within 4 years. I said, guys, I told you so. But it was doing well in Kenya and other African countries because the dynamics were different. So the identification of that market in that gap is very critical. Don't get excited. I see people, can do. I can give you a very simple story of a friend of mine. Come from the same village, went to the same school. 10 years ago, he started an online delivery platform, in South Africa, where they were doing grocery deliveries and was struggling for like six or 7 years, right? And because people did not even understand why I like going to the shops and buying groceries and doing stuff for myself. So nobody really bought into the concept. Even the big retail shops like your Checkers, your Pick and Pay, they were not even interested into buying into his concept. But he persevered up until when COVID hit and everybody's locked inside, and he was the only guy who was doing grocery deliveries. He's from having a revenue of R1 million a month to having 64 million rand a month during COVID. And that is where they came and Checkers partnered with him. That's why there's that big Checkers 66 app in South Africa. It's them who developed it. And because they've realized that this guy has persevered through years, nobody believed in his concept. So there are businesses that you have to create value first before people can believe in it. You have to dig in, you have to go work hard and start by basically creating value so that people can see the value of the business that you're trying to introduce to them. We've got a lot of development finance institutions in South Africa that are largely government owned, But the problem is their requirements are more the same as the requirements that the banks want, and we've been fighting for so many years to say, guys, you're supposed to be development-minded, not profit-minded, But we're winning that war. They're relaxing some of these regulations that are around funding for small SMMEs. I mean, when research shows that when you look at sub-Saharan Africa, for example, it's like the funding gap of $330 billion US. That's the funding gap that we need to sort of try to close. So the key thing is let's educate our entrepreneurs. Let them understand what do we mean by a financial statement, what is an audited financial statement, how to do basic record keeping. Like she said, are you the CEO, are you the HR executive, are you the marketing executive in your company? Try to create partnerships as well. I mean, one thing, the story of the guy that I was telling you about, that company is called Zulzi. I mean, if you check it on the internet, it's one of the most successful tech startups in South Africa. It's when he had a concept, he was a software engineer, he had a concept, but he went and proposed the concept to a fellow software engineer and say, guys, come, you'll be the chief technology officer, I'll be the CEO. These two guys now are very successful. Their company is valued around 500 million rand. So it's because they wanted to collaborate based on the skills that I have, because at the end of the day, you can't do it on your own.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you, Basil. Tadela, Patrick, any?
Okay, can I just summarize what has been said by my two co-panelists by saying that a lot of the work that we are doing has to do with education, especially within our country. I know a number of the banks are involved in financial literacy programs. They are also involved in financial inclusion, which the regulator requires us to do. But one of the key things that we also just need to bring out in this education is also just advising entrepreneurs and startups where they actually need to be going for the funding. Because I think when people hear bank, they think that's where the money is and they want to go there and get the funding. But it's not necessarily banks only that provide funding, but also understanding the level of funding that you require and where you need to be going for it. In one of the cases that we dealt with about a couple of years ago, one of the entrepreneurs came through and was approached a multinational company that had an investment group within it and needed funding. And, they did their whole presentation and they needed about $50,000, but the limit, or rather the minimum that the organization could give was $2 million. So you're pitching rather to the wrong investor. So it's important to understand that if you're a not-for-profit organization, who are the funders for a not-for-profit? If you're a private company, private limited company, just understand who the funders of private limited companies are. If you are in the agricultural space, just understand who's doing business with people in agriculture, and basically just understanding who you need to be approaching for funding, because sometimes we buck up the wrong trees and then we think that the landscape is thin and there's no funding for people out there, but it's largely because of who we're approaching for the funding.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Tadala?
Yeah, just to add in to what everyone has said, I think the main thing is that the SMEs and businesses have to be investor ready, and that involves how to have financials in place, how to have a proper governance structure, a proper board. On the other side, what I want to share is more of a practical situation we've dealt with in Malawi, more especially, as I said, the Tipeze flea market. These are traders who one day just decide, I'll be selling cosmetics, I'll go in a shop in town and then sell to make a bit of money. But then they don't understand the business issues, they don't know how to keep records, they really are not quite up there. So what we developed was the Tipeze CEO coaching program. I should say I picked this up when I was at Clark Atlanta. We went to one of the organizations in Atlanta, and there was a CEO coaching program that they were doing for black entrepreneurs. And I thought, well, I did a bit of coaching, and I learned that through the coaching, I was able to develop more skills, more understanding. So upon returning to Malawi, we approached different CEOs of big companies, top tier CEOs, people you can just meet ordinarily. We asked them, can you please mentor, coach a few SMEs? They accepted. The first time we were able to do that for 5. And later on, a few other people who were mentored through that program were able to now get grants and financing from other institutions. That way, what I thought, that way essentially, these people attained a bit of more skill to the extent that someone was able to say, you are investor ready and I can actually fund you. But on the other hand, we've tried to look at other alternative financing processes. I do understand microfinancing, but in our environment, in our context like Malawi, our interest rates are extremely high. If you give date to an SME, the likelihood that they will default is very high. However, I did sit on a board for the Public-Private Commission in Malawi, and there was funding of about $72 million. What that funding wanted to achieve was to reach out to SMEs and different organizations, train them with the necessary technological skills, and we partnered with different hubs in Malawi to train different people, more especially businesses, to attain technological skills. This was made on the basis that now we're in a technological environment. Right now, there are people who go on TikTok and sell their products to the greatest extent. They don't have a shop. but they're making a lot of money. So we wanted SMEs, entrepreneurs to learn this, that you can market effectively on different social platforms and then make money. So that was more like a form of blended finance. Again, the crowd financing, we've utilized it. I think it's a good idea. However, I acknowledge that the banks, development financial institution, are actually some of the biggest institutions that one can get more funding. Probably the best solution indeed is being investor readiness, being investor ready, and that entails the training and development and capacity building that was shared by Patrick. So I think it's a continuous learning process. We need to be open to accept that for us to get more funding and opportunities, we also have to move and develop for the better. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. Yes, Basil?
I think also what is important is people can hear us talk about these big terms like your audited financial statements, and people think, I need to be making a lot of money. Let me tell you, when I started my business in 2011, up until to date, I can show you financial statements of each and every year.
Wow.
Starting from when I was actually making 10,000 Rand a year to where I'm making, over the six figures side now. And I'm able to sort of track my progress. I'm able to see in which year did I not do well and why did I not do well. So people mustn't think, just basic financial management, you need to be making a lot of money. Even if you're making just $1, show people how you utilize that $1 to improve your business. That's very critical. I've seen a lot of people say, but Basil, audited financial statements, I need to be making hundreds of thousands. I said, but you've made one sale, right? With $1. What have you done with that $1?
Yeah.
That is what people are more interested in. And it's not about, people don't want to really see if you're making big profits. They just want to see how you manage your affairs. Now I can walk into any bank, I can get any truck financing that I want, because people now can see that this guy can actually run his affairs. If they want 2015 audited financial statements, I can go and pull them and say, I can show growth in my business. So people must not be lazy simply because they're making small amount of money. We're interested in seeing what that small amount of money and how you're utilizing it.
That's good. No, thank you for that. Before I ask the audience if they have one or two questions, maybe just to sum up this section, I think Basil is talking about discipline. That as entrepreneurs, it is key for us to be disciplined to access these financial systems, or to even pull in the peer-to-peer lending or crowdfunding. And I think Patrick talked about education. Knowledge is power. So I think as entrepreneurs, we must be equipped with the knowledge to see which doors to knock on, and which trees to back up. So just to summarize, and I think this issue of investor readiness keeps coming up, that we must be prepared for funding as entrepreneurs. And I think the panelists talked about financial management, business model, your market validation, growth strategy. Is your product scalable? Is your business scalable? I think these are very key things that we need to have as entrepreneurs. And I like the role of the US government coming in to support, to give you grants. I think there's programs like YALI, the Young African Leaders Initiative, which helps African entrepreneurs develop investor-ready businesses. So these are all tools that are available to us as entrepreneurs, as well as the alumni members as well, in terms of support. So maybe for this time, I'll take one or two questions before we move on to the next touchy subject on women entrepreneurship. If you could have a roving mic, sir. Yes, they've got three questions.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to, I'd love for you to touch on the part of sustainability. I think that was touched in the earlier session, but I feel it was not adequately answered, especially Tabo and, sorry, I've forgotten the name, but then If you have to give advice for many entrepreneurs, especially when you look at sustainability in the long run, there was talk on the aspect of the business outliving the owner. There's usually challenges for businesses to continue after the owner passes on. So on the aspect of sustainability, if you could just touch that part, and also how to build a strong team also, because I feel that fits into sustainability.
Okay, whilst the panel are thinking about the answer, maybe we'll take another question. In terms of sustainability in the long run, how can businesses outlive the owner? We'll have a second question. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. My name is Manuel Sekane. I'm from Lesotho. My question is for the panelists who are in financial sector. I work as a business development practitioner, mainly supporting entrepreneurs in agriculture. And agriculture is one of the key, actually number one productive sector in our country. And there's so much work or programs that are targeted in supporting agricultural entrepreneurs, and financing is one of them. So my curiosity, or what I would like to learn from other countries, is how are you navigating agricultural financing, whether horticulture, poultry, and others? Well, in Lesotho, we are focusing mainly on horticulture and poultry, but you can speak to any within the agriculture to say what are the key considerations that you're having as financial institutions for agriculture, and what are some of the financing products that you have, just to learn and see how, as we designing and implementing these programs, we are mindful of those. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you for the question. I think we can also have comments or even responses from the audience. Please feel free. There's a gentleman that I'm looking at right now who I work with. He's also very passionate about financing horticulture, so I'm sure he can also comment on that. Mr. Kazunga, I'm sure you can help Patrick. So, Thabo, Tadala, Basil, the issue of sustainability. How do we build startups, companies that can outlive us as founders?
Okay. It's a very good question. First of all, not every business is supposed to outlive you. That's one notion we need to get out of our minds. On building a business doesn't mean it's a business for a lifetime. It can be a business for a day. When COVID hit, people started selling masks. If you sold masks before COVID hit, would you have made money? I have an SME who started up a business selling masks just when COVID hit, and they made money. Are they still selling masks? No. They invested that money into another business. So as an SME, stop stressing. It's not a business for Elizabeth and Sons. No. You've got to know the lifespan of your business, because then that promotes innovation. It means you start to look at different channels of improving your business model. Your business model, Ben, how are you making money? So if today, I used to be a fashion designer, by the way, very passionate about it, but the biggest mistake I made was I made outfits that I liked, and I threw them to the customers and got upset because they didn't like them. Why? So there's a huge gap between you and your customer, and that's why you need to be careful about passion, yeah? A lot of SMEs are failing because they're not accepting the fact that their business model is not scalable. So on the aspect of sustainability, I'll bring you back to your drawing board. Let's look at your business model scorecard. Does it address the different platforms? Is there a market for your business? Who's your target audience? SMEs love to answer everyone. No. You're not for everyone. Same as your product. You've got to know who you're selling your product to. This is age, income, location, because then that determines which media platform you're going to use. If your age group is people above 45 and all, they're listening to news at 7 a.m. as they're driving their kids to school, that's why you're advertising, but they're not on TikTok. So you're looking at sustainability in the wrong areas. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and you are tired, but you're not making money. So first things first, on the aspect of sustainability, is your business scalable? Who is it serving? Where are they found? And how can you serve their needs? Again, be flexible to change your business model if it's not working, because sometimes it will not. First of all, it started from your mind, and until you test it on the ground, you get to discover if it's actually working. And then define your growth stage. Where do you want to be in 3 years, in 2 years? I should have made X amount of profits. And then just as I said, you're keeping a record of your financing progressions. When you find you're making too many losses, you're not meeting your targets, then you need to revisit your business model. The other most important thing that I'll actually add is mentorship. Stop making the same mistakes that another entrepreneur has made based on the business that you are doing. So we encourage mentorship. Right now we have the Gracia Michelle mentorship program that's promoting mentorship among women entrepreneurs in Africa. I think you have them in South Africa. I'm not sure about Zimbabwe, but we just launched it in Zambia. So you've got to have a business mentor who can oversee your business without some level of attachment, but just as a business person. The other aspect that you asked about is how do you build a team? How you build a team is what skills do you have as an SME, and what skills are you missing that your business needs to grow? So then if you're not good at financial management, you need somebody who's good at financial management. That's a great team. If you're not good at customer satisfaction, talking to customers, conflict resolution, you need somebody that can handle that one customer who posts on your Facebook page and says, your products are not nice. You're not going to fight back with them, but you find somebody who know how to talk to them. The other aspect that you need to know is, once you have formed that team, give them deliverables. Are they meeting the deliverables? It's one thing to form a team, but are you now meeting the deliverables of your organization? I think that sums up the 2 points that she asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Thabo. Basil, Tadala, anything to add on sustainability?
Yeah, I think on sustainability, there's this thing where we say for the first 5 years of your business, you must be working in your business. And then beyond that, you must be working on your business, right? So, meaning that the initial part is you basically being actively in charge of day-to-day operation and stabilizing, that infancy stage of your business. And then from there, you start to work on your business strategy. That is where you have a look on your business from an external perspective, like where do I want to take this business? Because some of these things you can't do them while you're actively involved in the business. This morning I woke up, sometimes I go to Google and I just Google my name. So every time I Google my name, there's this interview that I did in 2017 with the Money Show, which is one of the most popular radio shows about money in South Africa. And I listened to that interview, I think it runs for like 20 minutes. And I listened to my perspective of my business in 2017 and my perspective on my business today. And I've seen the change. I can show the change. I can show some of the statements that were making sense then because they were serving a purpose then. But just to have a look at it, I can see now, basically now more on the strategic side of my business. When I started the trucking business, I used to not sleep for 24 hours because trucks can get breakdowns at 3 a.m. in the morning. You need to wake up and call insurance. Now, I start to put together a team of people that helps me. I can go away for any number of days. I don't have to worry because the business is running. So I think focus on working in your business first and then work on your business after. So that those people will do it vice versa. Or they don't do the first part. They start their business and work on their business. You need to get in and get dirty in the business. Sometimes at the beginning, it's understandable. You can be the HR manager and you can be the CEO, but as time goes by, show growth by building a team. That's where the team concept comes in. By building a capable team that sort of helps you do some of these things that you can do, but also you still need other people to help you do those things because they bring an element of experience. Like when it comes to HR, you might find that I'm not a very compassionate boss. You know, for me, it's if you do wrong, I fire. And in that way, you end up firing a lot of good people, right? But if you sit and say, yes, I'm good at HR, but I'm not compassionate, then we get someone who's good in HR, but compassionate, so that that person can sort of complement that, you know, weakness that I've got. So it's about you setting up a very good team that complements you as a boss, and that sort of like aligns to your company's vision.
And it's always good to have that balance within your team. That's good. Patrick, your thoughts on the agricultural question? Farmers?
Okay, thank you for that. Before I respond to that, can I just acknowledge what Thabo said concerning the financing of sustainability of businesses, and not necessarily having to have a business that's going to outlive the owner. I really like that, and I'm going to borrow that when I train entrepreneurs. And I'm acknowledging you now because I'm not going to acknowledge you when I tell them that. So just know that. But also just to build on to that and say that that in itself also is a bit of a challenge, because when you do that and you understand that the business is just going to end anytime soon, it then tells you also the duration for which you can probably apply for funding, and then informs also where you need to be going for the funding as well. So that's probably going to be bootstrapped. It's probably going to be from family members that can assist, help you make your money, spin it, do what you need to do and all that. So just for people that want to do that, just know that there's no financial institution that's probably going to assist with that kind of lending. But when it now comes to navigating agricultural space and financing, I think I won't speak about the banks, because the banks are going to consider, you know, your commercial farmers largely that already have enterprises that are running. They've got systems in place. They've got accountants. They've got finance managers. They've got farm managers. They are systems basically, and banks can fund those. But when you speak about small-scale farmers, there are certain ways that especially the microfinance companies are working in that space, which is largely to do, you know, with bringing people together. Having them form groups, maybe an irrigation scheme, then they fund them as a group, they cross-guarantee one another. There are also, I know that there are weather-indexed insurance products. I know we do have one. I don't know if they exist maybe in the countries that are represented here, where when you fund small-scale farmers and then there's an adverse weather condition like a dry spell or rain, hail that destroys the crop, then they are able to get insurance for at least the inputs that they had put into the project before, you know, the event occurred. So those are some of the things that financial institutions are doing. And then we have also just redesigned the loan facilities whereby the repayments can coincide with the harvest times. Those are some of the facilities that people can then access as well. And then, you know, just ways of ensuring that the funds are not abused by then paying maybe directly to the suppliers and not giving the farmers themselves the money, because money can be diverted. So when it comes to small-scale farmers, these are some of the mechanisms that we use. And then you also work with the local agri-tax officers that can then help, that once the funds have been dispersed, they can actually work with the agri-tax officer who can then assist them in the farming practice just to ensure that it's sustainable. At least try to ensure that there is a harvest that comes out of whatever venture they are working on.
Sure. No, thanks. Yes, Mr. Kazunga. Mike, please. Mike to the front. Gentleman over here on the agricultural response.
Thank you. It's just a quick one on agriculture. So you find that one of the weaknesses with small-scale farming is that they cannot enjoy economies of scale. If somebody is doing production on half a hectare or 1 hectare, their cost of fertilizer acquisition, chemicals is so high, you know, the logistics and so on. So one of the concepts which we have applied is value chain financing. So we don't go straight to that farmer. We go to an aggregator, somebody who is aggregating output from these guys. So that aggregator is the one who is acquiring the fertilizer, who is also employing the specialist skills, right, who then go to these individual farmers. So I think that has been successful in tobacco farming. That has also been successful in a bit of poultry farming, and also horticulture. I think we've got a guy called, or a company called Kuminda, exporting into Europe, but they are actually aggregating produce from very small scale farmers, 1 hectare, half a hectare, with blueberry, strawberry, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam in the front.
Hi, my name is Immaculate. So I've made an observation when it comes to the bank. There's like sweet talking when there's maybe it's strategic marketing, I don't know. Like when they come to us, you know, they'll tell you, we've got funding for ladies, we've got funding for women, and you should apply, you should come, and then we'll fund your businesses. And then when you get to the bank, you get a shocker. We don't give funding, like you have said. So I think maybe there's a huge responsibility that lies with the banks, to be honest, with us from the word go. Your colleague will come to class and tell us there is funding. You get to the bank, you hear another story. There are two things involved. One, you've raised so much hope in me that I can get funding. Two, there is time being wasted, me writing a proposal, bringing it in only for it to be rejected. Rather, I would have invested that time going in the right direction. And then secondly, what I want to comment on funding for those who qualify, we submit proposals to the bank. And then I understand you read our proposals and then you determine who qualifies for the funding. But then there are certain questions that you would have heard when you're reading my proposal, and you haven't given me the opportunity to answer those questions, but then you proceed to make a decision. So maybe I propose, instead of just getting a written proposal, maybe even a pitch, so that you get all the details, and then both the bank and I, the entrepreneur, come to a point where we're both sailing in the same boat, and then you make a well-informed decision. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Immaculate. Patrick, you want to take the hot one?
Yes, that is a hot one. So let me just qualify this. Which country are you from?
Zimbabwe.
Okay, awesome. So let me just qualify what I said about the banks not giving funding at all, because that was just a broad statement. But you'll find that there are specific funds targeted for some of the groups that you mentioned that come from the Reserve Bank. I don't know if they're still there. You'll find that there's funding for women-run projects. There's funding for cross-border traders. There's funding for agriculture, mining, youth, persons with disabilities. There are specific funds for people within those brackets. But you don't need to know what the requirements would be. And if the particular bank you're approaching does have that kind of funding, because the banks had to apply to the RBZ to get access to that funding. And if they got it and they were listed at the RBZ to issue such funding, then you could go to the bank and then get funding, maybe specifically for women-led projects, funding for persons with disabilities, and funding for mining, cross-border trading, whatever it is. So if the bank isn't registered with the RBZ for that, then they won't have that kind of funding, in which case you'll be coming for probably what they'll be doing under their SME portfolio, which many entrepreneurs and startups don't qualify for. So I think that's one of the key things that we'd need to note. And then with regards to feedback, unfortunately, I don't think that there's the bank that's... Now I'm scared to say some of these things. But you'll find that the banks don't need to give feedback with regards to why a proposal is rejected. And the time to then call people in to come and say, come and pitch your idea and explain to us what you meant by certain things in your proposal, for example, might not be given to you. So it's important that you're very clear in the business case, because unfortunately, that's what speaks for you in a credit committee, because the banks will have what we call credit committees that's set to deliberate on your applications. And if it falls short and there are questions, and you're going to be represented by a relationship manager, most likely, in that credit committee that's going to explain your proposal to a credit committee that's independent and knows nothing about your business. So if you're not well represented, or if your business application, business loan application or proposal is not clear about certain things, there will be questions. And some of the things deliberated in that committee cannot then be communicated to you, for example. So you just need to be very clear and understand, maybe through advice from your relationship manager, what the bank is going to want to consider in that application.
Okay. Yes, Tadala.
I think just to add in, so in my other role as a lawyer, I actually work in a development financial institution. It's called Export Development Fund in Malawi. So the issues that he has shared is actually some of the things that we look at. For instance, we sit on the PDAC, where we look at different applications that come in. We're looking at different tenets or mandates that being submitted by the particular person, and therefore, if you submit something that's outside what we're looking for, we would not fund. However, I don't know how banks work differently from banks, because a development financial institution is more of impact investing. We want to spur development. We do go back, at least in our space, we go back. If we're very interested in a proposal, we'll go back, engage the person who submitted, and tell them the spaces where we think they should improve, and we engage them. So I'm not quite sure if Zimbabwe has a development financial institution, but those are areas where you can go. I think you mentioned about development financial institutions in South Africa. Of course, the problem we've been having now is the fact that we're now becoming more profit-oriented, because we have that aspect of development impact, but we also have to get our money back. So when the interest rates in Malawi are going up in the banks, we also kind of adopt that. There was a moment where we were giving out loans with the collateral being the commodity itself. So we gave out billions of Malawi kwacha to different companies to export soybeans, cotton, and what have you. However, there was a year when India, for instance, said we're not going to accept people to export soybeans to us. Resultantly, farmers in Malawi were able to export, therefore they made a loss and we couldn't recover. When that happened, there was a switch in our strategy. We started asking for collateral. So effectively, we are seemingly commercial oriented, though we have development mindset at it, so it becomes a bit difficult. But as I said, whatever proposition you make, I think your relations manager is the ideal person to speak for you, because they need to motivate the project assessment team to accept your proposition. I don't know if there are other institutions who will come back to you, but what I've seen in our company is that we do go back to those prospective projects we want to fund. And where it gets to a place where someone says, you know what, I can't manage this, that's when we stop. But we usually engage them further. Thanks.
Okay. No, thanks. Yes, Tabo, in brief?
In brief, one thing you must also know as an SME is who is looking for you. I think the biggest mistake SMEs feel is everyone should listen to you. So like we have the USAID EDGE program. It was looking for SMEs in farming. So meaning if you're in that category, you're speaking a language that they speak. In Zambia, we have the Zambia National Commercial Bank. So if a woman who's running a business, an entrepreneur, has been banking with them for 6 months and more, has access to free collateral loan of about 200,000 kwacha and more. So you need to know if you're at that level as an SME that qualifies for what that bank is looking for. We have the Standard Chartered Women in Tech program in partnership with Standard Chartered. They're looking for young people running businesses that promote technology. So are you what they are looking for? So a lot of SMEs get frustrated through rejection because you're approaching the wrong people. So change your strategy and find out who is looking for you.
Yeah. Thank you. No, thank you, Tabo. And as we wind up our discussion, you've picked up on a point that I wanted to raise. You know, Africa is generally a patriarchal society. Although things are changing, there are movements that the U.S. Embassy or U.S. government is assisting to bridge the gap. Other governments are also trying to close that gap. But from a perspective of a woman entrepreneur, so I'll put you, Tabo and Tadala, on the spot here. How have you managed to break the ceiling? And what advice can you give other fellow women entrepreneurs and also the alumni society? How best can you help the woman entrepreneur? Or from your experience, how has it been in terms of it? In brief, as we round up.
Well, that's a good one. I believe I'll speak for each and every woman across the world that it hasn't been quite an easy journey. I think already as women, we start from a level where you're already taken as probably you don't know stuff, you don't understand stuff quite well, so it's been quite tough. However, one thing I've employed is to be in spaces like this, turn up and be available. Why do I say that? In these spaces, that's where the synergies, the collaboration is built. Already I'm thinking, oh, well, Thabo has trucks. How can those trucks come to Malawi and, you know, we can export things to South Africa for our SMEs. So collaboration is quite key. And that's the power of, I believe networking is very, very important. You go to an event, you have to, I think the facilitator yesterday at the reception said, work the room. Who is in that room who you can collaborate with? Have your business card, give them. There is a bank, there is Thabo here. How can I say, Thabo, whatever you're teaching people in Zambia, can you share the notes, or can you actually come to Malawi and teach the SMEs that we're working with? The power of networking is quite huge. I did go for a certain training in London at some point, and we were told that there are big QCs, Queen's Council. These are people you'd never meet in any place, but we have brought them. You only have 1 minute to pitch your idea or to let them know who you are and for them to remember you for the rest of their life. What do you say in that moment? Your business card and who you are and how you can work together. The other thing, I think training. We undermine the power of education.
Yeah.
There's so many free courses nowadays. There's IBM that will give you design, thinking, training, marketing. Go on those courses, spend 2 hours instead of being on TikTok watching videos of people dancing. Spend 2 hours on a course that will actually give you a certification. Go on your LinkedIn page and say, I did training in design thinking. People will see you and they'll notice you. That's what I've done. Okay. I've taken different free courses, trainings, and I accept to even learn from the youngest person, from the least qualified, because I'll not come to that person and say, you know what, I have these qualifications, I'm not going to learn from you. Learn from anyone. And reading. I read quite a lot. I like books. When I was coming here, I was already in bookshops. That has helped me because ideas are hidden in books. For instance, I don't know how many people have read Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. I read that and it changed my mind. I said, well, let me work things out. Lean In and all those books. And I actually intentionally read books. The 5 a.m. Club. The CEOs, I think there's a book that's #1 right now by Steve Bartlett, I think. Read those, the ideas are hidden in these books. They are not on social media where we're arguing about different things. So training, the power of networking, collaborating. Do not take your friend as a competitor. They are your complementer. Work with them. I believe that's how we've built our business, and I'm delighted that we're able to go in rooms and they're able to recognize us and to accept us, and really to say, to even forget, we have to get to a place where people forget that you're a woman and they just say you're an entrepreneur just as everyone else. Okay. And that's where we're getting to. Thank you.
Great. Thabo?
I let her go first so she can give me the answers. First of all, something that she said, which is very important, you've got to show up. But when you show up, you've got to show up good. Because already there's a stigma of thinking women cannot succeed, women cannot do this. But by nature, women are multipliers. So really you should be the billionaires when it comes to entrepreneurship, because you understand how to put things together and multiply them. Key aspects that she has mentioned that I would just stress on is find programs that support women entrepreneurs. And this is actually a very good era where there's so many programs to the extent that men are complaining that there are too many programs for women. So find programs, I talked about the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs. Find programs that are supporting women entrepreneurs. Don't skip to starting a business without understanding the skills that you need to run a business. So simple things such as how do you run your business on a daily basis? How are you making your money, your business model? Find out the skills that are needed to run a business and work on those skills. A lot of our SMEs rush towards registering a company, printing business cards, CEO, you're distributing, your business hasn't started, and yet you don't even know the direction that you're going to take. A key aspect that she mentioned again is collaboration. Honestly, for entrepreneurs, we need to create an ecosystem that creates a thriving environment for SMEs. We have SMEs in Zambia who are exporting honey in South Africa, but because for some of them, their branding is not so good, so they actually let their honey go to South Africa, and somebody else rebrands their honey into their brand just so it can be acceptable on the South African market. So growing a business, like when you talk about mentorship, I'll speak from a business mentor perspective. You grow a person and you grow a business. You can grow a multi-million business, but the owner is still here. So as a female entrepreneur on a daily basis, you need to build yourself to match up to the business that you're building. We've had people being fired from their own businesses because they don't have the skills and the capability to run a business. So find organizations that are running business opportunities for women and build those skills. Don't start learning by mistakes. You can save so much money by building skills before you can start your business. And then mentorship. Find a mentor who has walked what you're trying to do, or somebody who understands business on a larger perspective. Collaborate with people, and then learn to find gaps in markets. Create businesses that are solving problems and not just businesses that you are passionate about. Restaurants solve problems. We need food on a daily basis. But with clothes and other things, it's a want, it's not a need. So if really with the limited capital that you have as an SME, stick to building businesses that solve problems, and at the end of it all, whatever you learn, document it. Your personal brand is very important. What you can't speak in an interview can be displayed on your website, on your Facebook page, on your Instagram, and on your LinkedIn page. So build a personal brand on top of it all and keep growing. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. So this has been quite a fruitful discussion. I see some 2 hands that have been waved for a while. We want to try and round up. I know this is a very hot topic. Okay, I'll start from the back. There's some hands that have been waved. Before I ask our panelists to just give us one key takeaway from this session as we round up, but maybe we'll hear the questions. We'll take 2 questions from the back, and then maybe 2 from the front. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think this has been a very informative session. My name is Thabo. I'm from South Africa. For my sins, I'm an accountant.
Okay.
But I specialize in learning and development. So I do a lot of work with SMMEs, YALI, and on the civic. So my thing is, access to market is the key, right? And I think it's been said. I don't know any banker personally that's ever declined a funding application when you have a contract to supply that is signed and it's delivered, right? Therefore, looking at the 7 habits of highly effective people, in being proactive, I would like to ask the panel, what advice do you have for alumni boards to navigate this issue of access to market? So the alumni boards from the 10 countries, if we look at SADC 16, right? Then secondly, what would you like to see alumni doing more of in their respective fields when it comes to assisting our countries to, become more entrepreneurial? So I'll be specific. Our alumni in academia, some are in advocacy, some are in government, and some are in business, right? So what kind of advice can be given for the alumni boards and also for the alumni? How can we challenge them? And then lastly, my namesake, Thabo, I'm also very passionate about enterprise development, and that's what we do in South Africa. I would like to know how can the alumni boards accelerate enterprise development for our own alumni, for them to get access to market and also be able to scale their businesses and answer some of the questions that you've answered. Thank you.
Thanks, Thabo, for taking all the questions from the floor. In view of time, okay, one more. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
There's a lady, Sasha.
All right.
Sasha?
My name is Lesinyang Gopan. I'm from Lesotho. All right. My question is related to the high employment rate in Africa.
Sorry, I don't
Like in
see-
Lesotho, we have something like 39% youth unemployment rate. So looking at this, young people don't want to talk about collaboration. We are talking about collaboration here at this conference. But when you reach in the field, there's no collaboration among young people. Because first of all, the problem with them is entitlement. Young people always need to be entitled that I'm a CEO of a certain company. But whereas you see the finance of the company, just doing 1,000 per year, right? So how do we remove those barriers? Or how do we remove those mentality to young people? One of the things is a collaboration. Through running a small business, there has to be policies that protect you. But we see reluctance of young people joining the organization, which I think those organizations are advocating for the policies for advancing those small business for young people. They are reluctant for this kind of thing. We are talking about collaboration. But young people are not ready for collaboration. What kind of solution can we bring so that we can see young people collaborating for development of Africa? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is it? The lady. Okay, all right. We'll take two more, then we'll try and answer the questions in view of time. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. And
Okay, good
then we'll go
afternoon.
to the lady in white then.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Chanda. I'm from Zambia. I'm in the financial services industry. I would have loved the panel to kind of just tackle how entrepreneurs can actually navigate social entrepreneurship and also sustainability. I would have really loved that we try and bridge that gap because I'm coming from a space where as startups, we are first driven by passion and empathy, and then at a certain point in our road, we fail to scale and remain sustainable because we are not able to fund our projects anymore, and even the people that we are helping have not really bought into our ideas and what we are trying to do for the grassroots, because that's where I'm coming from. So I hope the panel can lightly speak on that. Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, we'll take lady there. Okay.
Sorry. I've been holding this mic since. Sorry. This is not a question. It's, I think, a request. The funding, great, fantastic, and we love it. And I feel as a small business, when you are starting, it is quite difficult to go and apply to get funding. But what I would request, say Patrick, I offer a service and I bank with NMB as well. Please give us the contract to offer you our services. I do catering and food service, and as much as me applying for a loan right now is impossible, as leaders in the alumni, support us. Find a way to put me into the system so I can be able to apply for the loan. Make my financials make sense by giving me the opportunity to show you what I can do as a young woman. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we didn't get your name.
My name is Gracia Vute, and I own a
Gracia.
catering and service business called Pavute Gourmet. Thank you.
Sure. So Patrick, you take that. And then one last question from the floor before I summarize the questions.
Okay, thank you. It's not a question, it's a comment. I hope I can assist the lady with the question there and also here. My name is Charlene Moyo. I'm here in my personal capacity, and my views are my own and that are not of United Nations Development Program. I had to say that first. Right. I'm coming from the perspective of something I feel was not represented in the panel, which is funding that comes from the development sector, not necessarily from banks. And what I will say is that we maybe are seen as more lenient than banks because we will listen to the story, right? But what I also have to say to you is that we also suffer from what is called compassion apathy, where there's 1,000 of you who are asking me to listen to every issue and come back and phone you. that's not possible. So what we ask is when you apply for opportunities through us, whether it's grants or anything of some sort of assistance, be very, very good at writing what it is that you need. Be able to articulate it clearly, right? Another thing I would say is based on what the panel talked about. Know your sector and know who you're dealing with. So if you're in agriculture, I'm not sure which sector you're in. So if you're in clothing and manufacturing, for example, or for example, if you're in the energy industry, one thing I'd advise you to do is start learning. The companies, the multinational companies, have policies. There's one called an ESG policy, environmental, social, and governance policy. And most companies within your arena or sector also have corporate social investment policies. Ladies and gentlemen, please read. Read. Learn the terms and conditions, right? And then when it comes to the level of giving, there are 3 levels to it, depending on the amount of financing you need. Ask yourself, is the amount of money I'm asking for, can it be addressed by a family person or a friend? If not, do I need to attend to my community to answer that need? If not, can I go to an institution?
Yeah.
So don't rush to Patrick. Ask yourself, how much money do I need? And how financially organized am I in what I do? So I encourage people to actually read these policies, even when you're applying for grants from entities, whether from the United Nations and the like. In as much as the money is free, it comes with conditions too, as in you either have to show how you're meeting SDGs or something of that sort. So also start understanding what are the other requirements. Everywhere there's a requirement. You don't just get money for free. So understand the requirements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. So in brief, Basil, maybe you can tackle the issue about young people, collaboration. You started off as a young person, starting off your business. Maybe how can young people collaborate? Then maybe Patrick, if you could tackle the issue of the alumni access, member finance, and also access to market. And then maybe Thabo and Tadala, maybe you can look at the social entrepreneurship side. In brief, as we wind up. Maybe starting with you, Basil, young people, collaboration. How can we help the young people? How can we remove the barriers?
Yeah, I think what is more important is you need to firstly identify who are the right people to sort of like collaborate with, because you need to have the same passion, you know, because that's why most businesses that are partnerships don't last, is because people have got different visions, you know. Once there's $1 coming in, the other one wants to take $60. Understand why people are in business, right? Are those the same views as you are, you know, when it comes to business? I've went into business with lot of partners, and those partnerships worked because I understood the type of people that I'm going into business with. We set the same vision, values, and everything. And also another key thing is the issue of networking, how you network and all those kind of things. I say to people, you know, for most part of my entrepreneurship life, I've never printed business cards to a big extent. I used to, right? And I used to take them to networking events. And when I get to these networking events, I was selling my business cards, right? So you want my business card, I give you my business card, but you pay me $50, right? When you call me for a meeting, I come and give you your $50. If you do not call me for a meeting, then I've made plus or minus 900% profit, because it cost me just $10 to make that business card. So it's all about those small things as an entrepreneur that you have that sets you apart from everyone. But at the same time, find partners that have the same passion with you on the business that you're getting into.
Thank you, Basil. Yeah. Patrick, alumni, access to markets, financing, members, in brief, your thoughts?
No, thank you for that. I think the solution was already in what the contributor had already mentioned, to say access to markets. And I think that's important because now there's a whole value chain that may exist amongst ourselves. And if the alumni association can then just come together and bring these like-minded individuals that all contribute towards one end cause together, then I think it may make a bit more sense, even for the financial institutions that can possibly fund them. But one of the key things that people could do as well is to then say that you could approach any bank, for example, and get the association members to bank with the same institution, for example, so that when the money is circulating within the same bank, it's not much of a challenge, because you'll say there's so-and-so that's supplying this to so-and-so within your institution, and if you could just fund them, the money remains within the bank. Banks are more than happy to facilitate such transactions. I know we are at ZB, I know our moderators from NMB, so you may say the same thing, but if the money exists within the same ecosystem, it's better. So these are some of the models that you can then use to approach financial institutions to assist people then as they try to access the markets.
Thanks, Patrick. Social entrepreneurship?
You forgive me, let me just drop my answer for Thibault's. Okay. It's so sad to disappoint your namesake, so let me just... so just in addition to what he has said, what we need to do starting today as alumni is create cross-border trading. So Zimbabwe, you need to tell us what products you're looking for and find out if Zambian entrepreneurs have them, Malawian entrepreneurs have them, then let us know what it takes for us to sell on your market. So we have the Mandela Washington Fellowship, Business and Entrepreneurship. We have SMEs in that sector. So if we could work as Southern Africa, we have so many products coming in from South Africa being sold in Zambia. South Africans, what are you looking for? We're exporting honey, but we have somebody who's removing the Zambian tag and putting a South African tag because the SME doesn't brand them so well. So why don't you give us the criteria of what South Africa, Malawi, Namibia is looking for so that we can send you those products to your various companies. And just to a little bit stress on that, I'm currently working as a trainee for the UNDP as a national consultant. We're implementing something called the Supplier Development Program. What we want is to promote local SMEs to sell in your ShopRite, your Pick and Pay. So what we are doing now is we're working with Pick and Pay. What are you looking for? Then I go back to my SME and I solve that problem. So let's look at it beyond that, and it can be a project that we can do and come and talk about it in the next summit to say how many SMEs from Malawi are now selling in Zambia, selling in Botswana, based on the feedback that you're going to give us. And then I'll just touch shortly on social entrepreneurship. Please don't think running a social enterprise means you can't make money. I don't know why SMEs think you can't make money because you're a social enterprise. I used to run a social project. I used to work with women in prison. I taught them how to design and make jewelry. I'm a jewelry designer at the same time. So then my point there was I was so scared to ask for funding because it's a social enterprise. And then my mentor told me to say, are you incurring transport costs? I said, yes. Do you have to buy the products? I said, yes. So he said, it's a business. So don't be afraid to make money. It's a social enterprise, but it's a business. It's just social. Yeah. And then the other aspect that you need to focus on is your key funder is your customer. And half of the SMEs never focus on customer satisfaction for the customer to give them the money that you're looking for. We are so focused on income from the banks and all, and yet you're not even satisfying your customer, meaning your product is not perfect to make me come back to you and buy what you're selling. Yeah. So that's what I would say on that. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much. Tadala, is that a mic on?
Yes.
Last comments. Comments. Right.
The last comment. I think I just want to highlight what the lady with the catering business said, that I think most of us are in decision-making positions, and I agree with you. Whenever we're in those board meetings, whenever we're in those spaces, we should actually sponsor or mention the name of the other businesses that we've met here. I think that's how we're going to grow, pull each other up. And for instance, in Malawi, we have a regulation for SMEs. Each government institution is supposed to give business to a certain percentage of SMEs. That has increased the ability of SMEs to trade, get money, and even build financial muscle. So I agree with you. That's very, very important. Yeah. On social entrepreneurship and sustainability, I agree with Thabo. A social entrepreneurship institution can actually have the social process happening where there's impact, but the entrepreneurship part is where you do business. So for instance, we did, I shared about the Tipeze coaching program. We were able to say, come for this training with these CEOs for free. They gave their time for free. That's a social aspect. On the other hand, when the traders come to our market, we actually ask them to make a contribution, which is a fee. And sometimes we're able to make a profit, sometimes to break even or even a loss. So at the end of the day, it's more of a social entrepreneurship. Now, you did ask about sustainability. I take the sustainability you're mentioning to be, sometimes we receive grants, but how is it going to continue beyond the grant? I shared about us getting a funding from the corporate fund in Malawi for the Arts and Crafts Fair. What we noted was this can become an annual event. Every year, on the 15th of April, there's celebration of the World Arts Day. This year, again, we're having the Arts and Crafts Fair. And because people have seen that it was successful last year, we're now having interest of people coming, wanting to fund us, but also to make it sustainable. We'll still ask SMEs to contribute a little something to showcase at this Arts and Crafts Fair. At the end of the day, we are sustainable. We are continuing with the project that was initially funded, and now it will be an annual event. The last thing, let's embrace technology. There's now AI. You can now have virtual reality shops buying virtually. I hear you can also feel clothes. So let's move with technology and embrace that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Wow, this has been a fantastic topic, and I think we'll talk to Faith, Melanie. I think we need a half-day session on finance for the next summit because we've covered a wide range of topics, and thank you to the panelists. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you to the audience. A big round of applause to our panelists. They've done such a fantastic job in answering all our questions. And I think the key takeaway points is that investment readiness is going to be the key to unlocking a lot of finance. And I think as the US government support, we need to work with our alumni to make our entrepreneurs ready to access this finance, and also to strengthen our businesses so that we can move to the next level. But otherwise, thank you very much for this session. It has been a wonderful time, and I wish you all the best in your ventures, and we look forward to having more sessions. But otherwise, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think the next session is due.